We have a number. Now I'm going to make you clap because we have a number. I get goosebumps about this because for some reason I've known it's been real for several months, but now it's in black and white. We have the draft ballot voter pamphlet. We are on the November 8th ballot. There's nothing that can be done to white us out, and we're there to stay. We are committed to passing this proposition. Did I read it fully? New construction, how much?
$3 billion.
Modernization?
$3 billion.
Louder. Career tech?
$500 million.
Charter schools?
$500 million.
Community colleges?
$2 billion.
$9 billion. It's fantastic. So, our polling, and we consistently do this, and we do the science behind this is quite complex, and I always am interested in hearing about it. But when voters hear about it, they indicate around 60% will support Prop 51. If voters only see the cost and hear the opposition, that support declines. How much it declines is a variable. That's why our efforts to do fundraising and such are so clearly important and continue to be very important. We do have opposition. All of you who are registered voters get a voter pamphlet. How many of you read those? Raise your hands. Dave Walrath says you're geeks if you read a voter pamphlet. Okay. You know that there's a support and the other side of the equation. And so the California Taxpayers Action Network, it's a group that I'll tell you about in a minute, but they have written unopposed. They highlight Governor Brown's February commentary, and they say that Proposition 51 is unaffordable, unaccountable, unnecessary, inequitable. They are not, this group is not affiliated with Howard Jarvis group, which is neutral on the bond. They are not affiliated with Caltax, which has supported Prop 51, and or other local tax entities. So they're primarily associated with CEQA litigation on that kind of thing. So these statements, pros and cons, will be in the voter pamphlet received by every California voter. We believe that our pro statement and our rebuttal statement are quite strong. We'll have that placed, I believe it is already placed, available to look at the entire language on the CASH website. And it's important to note, Dave Walrath pointed this out this morning, that the governor did not sign on a con or submit an against argument, even though he's referenced in the con statement. So our vote yes on Prop 51 arguments will, of course, be in the voter pamphlet, and we have strong arguments to vote yes. Did it move? Sorry, I can't see it. Safe schools, we all know that. Repair and renovation. Renovation and repair resonate very well with voters, and as it should. It's so important. New classrooms, the strong local control and accountability. No new taxes, which that goes over really well in my county, and career tech education, which really is everybody interested in that, and the number of jobs that this type of funding creates. Not only the good it does for our school infrastructure, but how many jobs are created is really an important aspect of the bond. So we mentioned this before. We need to make sure that every school district, every county office, every local education agency has an opportunity to look and support board resolutions for Prop 51. The 130 board resolutions that we've received identify a need of almost $24 billion. So we're scratching the surface here, but we do ask that you go out into the community and make sure that if the districts in your area have not already done a resolution, that you provide them the information so that they can consider it. The sample resolutions are on the cash issues stateschoolbond.com website, and it's pretty easy to follow. So the endorsements continue to roll in, and these are so key and important. As you talk to folks about Prop 51, it's important to let them know who's behind us, who supports us, because that's kind of what people generally want to know. The Republican and Democrat parties, this is the first time we've had both in support. We have local chapters of the State Building and Construction Trades Council, California Chamber of Commerce, that's a big one. CalTax, that's huge. League of Women Voters, California PTA, CASBO, the CSESA group, which are the county superintendents, and CSBA. There are so many, we don't list all of them, but those are some really key endorsements that we have. Go back to what I mentioned earlier on the polling. Endorsements are needed, but raising funds is crucial at this point in time. We are now on a really fast track for raising money, because at some point we won't be able to buy airtime. So it's critical in these summer months before fall that we really kick up those efforts and make sure that we get money, because that will allow us to make sure that the voting community knows about our bond. They don't know we are putting our hands in fate. You know, we're not doing everything that we can to make sure that this will pass. So it's really important. Do we want to leave this up to chance? I certainly don't. So we need the support of associate members and individuals. I know you know where to find the contribution forms. It's not that painful. Personal contributions are appreciated, and the more people that we get on that contribution list, it shows the numbers of people that are behind our efforts. So I always want to thank our major contributors. We have several triple diamond, that's $50,000 and greater. And many of these firms, the architects, consultants and planners, construction managers, furniture and equipment, and financial institutions have gone beyond the fiscal contribution and helped us with fundraising efforts, reaching out to some of their lower tier consultants or subcontractors or things of that nature. So the dollar amount doesn't always represent their entire effort, and we really appreciate these firms. They're big, and so they're able to do that, but every small contribution counts, so we encourage you all to keep thinking about that. We will win. We have to win. We don't have another choice. And I want to sound desperate, but this is really a key time, and let's not leave this up to fate here. Let's make sure that the voting populace understands what we're trying to do. I'm going to get an entire outfit with 51 all over it. I'm going to pretend like it's my age. Try. But we need your support. I know you guys get tired of hearing me say this, but it is so crucial. And I don't want to be sad in November. It's not going to be a pretty sight. I'll get some of that black mascara and, all right. Let's move on from the bond information to talk about our monthly workshops, which have been quite successful. We've had really good attendance. Tomorrow, rather than Friday, is in Ontario, the Southern California session of preparing for November school bonds. I think there's still time to register if you'd like to attend. It's about covering with districts and others the type of consultants needed for either an advocacy or public information bond campaign, building a local bond team for pre- and post-election services, legal requirements for placing a Prop 39 school bond on the ballot, and appointing bond oversight committees, and a lot more. Cash always does a good job informing our membership about what is required. So if you haven't signed up to attend, registration opens at 8:30, and then the workshop begins at 9, and I think it's at the DoubleTree. I know many of you have been there. Good workshop. I heard good things about the one in Sacramento. And then coming up in August, we're doing a workshop with DSA. We've talked about this before, and I think maybe Chet mentioned it last month at the membership meeting. It'll be August 16th in Sacramento, and again, a Thursday, August 18th in Ontario. It's going to be a very interactive workshop. We've heard Chet talk a lot about, he's not here today, so I can talk about him. Talk a lot about if he doesn't know about it, he can't fix it. You know, he talks about that a lot, and I think that this is an opportunity to share with him specific situations and scenarios and have a constructive conversation about relationships between architects districts and the state architect's office. We want to make sure that it's a positive conversation, and I'm sure that's going to happen. But these workshops will offer information on recent and ongoing changes as well with DSA, 21st century technology implementation, processing and plan review, addendums and deferred approvals, and construction change directives and electronic plan review. DSA's been pretty progressive with changes under Chet's charge, and there's more things here. Responsibility for sign-up involving modular buildings and manufacturers, MWELO, the water conservation regulations. Statutory changes that will be effective in June, already effective now, June 2016. Discussion of future mechanical and plumbing review. Anticipating net zero emissions in the future, and a lot more. So to find out about this workshop or register, visit the CASH website, and we look forward to seeing you there. Okay, the fall conference, right before November. What do you think we're going to be talking about? It will be an important time for us to be together to talk about where we are and update on polling. And I asked Dave Walrath this morning, will absentee ballots be out by that date? And he believes so. So, bring them with you, mark them. We want to make sure that you get your reservations in. Is the hotel reservation open yet?
Yes.
Okay, so hotel reservations are open now, and I find, the earlier you get in, the better. So October 17th through 19th in Newport, and again, a really important update. So check your inbox for the CASH weekly update for the summary of what's been happening and latest news. I know I do, and sometimes even I as chair find things out that maybe I didn't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I think it's important to read that if you want to know what's going on with CASH. It's also nice to share with folks who aren't members, who you might be able to show them some of the things that we're doing and see if that would benefit them in the job that they do. And so now we're going to move to state agency updates. I'm going to let you know we did have a change. We were going to have an update from OPSC, but we won't have an update today. So it looks like the acting governor's office is here. Fred made me say that. To give us the update from the California Department of Education. And I joke about that, but does everybody know that Tom Torlakson is acting as, what is it?
Governor.
Well, he's acting as governor,
If the line of succession has gone way down.
So I guess I could give you OPSC and DSA updates and as the
If you
governor,
want
so
Time and knowledge, checks are in the mail. A couple things on lead. Just as a reminder, and much like Jenny, I find out new things all the time in my email, and this is new, but it is old, that child care, so federal law requires that individuals receive certain information before renovating more than 2 square feet of painted surface. So, Maintenance services in housing, child care facilities, and schools built before 1978. So the families of the children under the age of 6, so now especially with preschool, transitional kindergarten, that attend those facilities, both public and private, must provide a copy of this pamphlet to child care facilities and general renovation to families whose children attend those facilities. So not too sure logistically how that works out and tracking who's 6 years old in the district, but that's a requirement. In the budget language is $9.5 million for water projects. In many districts calling about that. Diane Waters, our architect, and I met with the water boards last week. The law requires that we collaborate with the water board in developing the guidelines and working out how to distribute the funds. So we met with them last week. The contact that's leading it at water boards is Patricia Leary, and her number is 916-341-5167, and her email is Leary, so Pleary at waterboards.ca.gov. We're anticipating from that conversation over the next several months to start working with the guidelines. So there's probably not much she can share other than that we're getting the group together to start talking about it. But she will be your contact point as we move on now. So, let's see, a couple other things. Often I talk about the importance of separating cars and kids, and unfortunately in a school district, a car and a kid did collide. Kid's alive on the stats, but just another reminder that despite the best laid operational plans, stuff happens. And this was an older school where they had tried to add parking, and essentially you have kids crossing this driveway to get to the play areas, and probably the kids shouldn't have been there, and probably the teacher shouldn't be there, but they were. So why architectural solutions are preferred to operational. And one final note, October is usually a busy time for us as seabeds and other things get updated, as well as many districts on an acknowledged list may have a plan that's over 2 years old for plans and 5 years for sites. I don't know what the OPSC's plan is for renewals on that, but you might want to take a look at it and see if you need a renewal on that, so that we aren't all doing them on November 4th, or whatever the day is on that, so that we can start get you taken care of before that. And also the value of preliminary plans will help also to get your project through smoother. And we do know that if you do preliminary plans, your final plan comes out 2 to 3 weeks faster on average on things. So that's important. So I think that's it. Jeff wants to say why he's on timeout over there. Any questions?
From the acting governor's office. Anybody else?
You guys need to
I'm sorry, I forgot to
anything
introduce. I forgot to introduce you, Fred Yeager.
Oh.
Everybody knows him, but so anyway, thank you very much, Fred. I appreciate the update. And yeah, I would be looking ahead to make sure I had updates done and completed before the big rush happens. So I understand I'm going to be joined by Dean Padilla and Rebecca Curry from CASH staff for legislative updates. On down.
All right, good morning. How's that? Can you hear okay? So we are anxiously awaiting the legislature's return next week. They'll be back next Monday from their summer recess. So they'll be here to wreak havoc for another month, and then they'll be done with their work in this legislative session, and our 15-16 session will come to a close. And then we will not see them again until January. So good timing for us and all the work that we'll be doing on the bond. But it does mean that August is a very busy month for your legislative advocates as we're racing around trying to tie up loose ends on bills. It's sort of that pressure, it's the finish line. And what I wanted to do today is give you updates on a couple of bills where they have actually run their course and we won't be dealing with them in August unless there is a really big surprise at the end of session. And then one that is still moving through the process. So I'll start with that one that's still alive. It's AB 2316 O'Donnell. This is your competitive selection process for lease-leaseback. Cash is supporting that provision of the bill. It's also doing another thing. It's addressing the disgorgement issue to provide a safe harbor from conflict of interest litigation for contracts that were signed prior to July 2015. And I'll give you a guess on what that date is related to. So when this bill was heard in Senate Education Committee most recently, that committee did have some concerns regarding the disgorgement piece, and they required the author to take amendments to that provision specifically in order for the bill to continue moving forward in the legislative process. So those amendments are narrowing the disgorgement piece and saying that the specific reason that the contract is determined to be invalid is in relation to the new competitive bidding requirements and then some other amendments. So we'll continue to update you on that one as it moves through in August. The two that I want to mention to you are both dead. And there are two bills that I reported to you on previously, and fortunately, Cash is completely okay with these bills being dead, so that's a good thing for us. The first is SB 313 Monning. This is a bill related to school siting, and specifically school siting in agricultural areas. So we've talked a lot about this last month and in prior months. This is one that was a zombie bill. It was up in 2015, didn't continue moving forward, and surprise, was back in the beginning of 2016. It's sponsored by the California Farm Bureau Federation, and Cash does have an opposed position because it creates more hoops for schools to jump through in this already very robust school siting process. So Assembly Education Committee had amendments that they proposed to the bill that were actually not friendly to the author. So Assembly Education Committee had a couple of things that they proposed, really in recognition of the fact that school siting is a very complicated process, and with the belief that existing provisions in the law really do address some of the concerns of the proponents. And because the author didn't want to take those amendments, it was sort of a line in the sand. You have to take these amendments to move this bill out. I'm not going to take those amendments. All right, the bill's not moving out. So that one didn't come up for a vote in that committee, and so did not meet the deadlines to continue moving forward. The second bill I want to mention, we talked about a little bit earlier this year, and that's SB 885 Wolf. This is the bill that's related to indemnity and duty to defend provisions. And really specifically, who pays first dollar of defense for claims that are pertaining to a design professional's work. We spent a lot of time working on this bill this year, and Cash did have an opposed position working with a very large group of public works folks, as well as those in the contractors, subcontractors, labor. And really, our message to the legislature and the author was, this is something that was dealt with back in 2010, and there was an agreement from all sides. Let's preserve that agreement unless something has changed dramatically since that point in time. And this bill, when it was scheduled to be heard in Assembly Judiciary Committee, the chair listened very thoughtfully to both sides and was sympathetic to both sides, and really kind of came to this place where he believed that this is an insurance issue, something that Cash has also believed. And he suggested an alternative approach, which would have required design professional errors and omissions insurance policies to cover an additional insured, which would have kind of gotten, which was an attempt to get at the core issue that the bill is trying to solve. However, that approach was not friendly to the author, and she decided to pull the bill from the calendar, and it was not heard in that committee. So that means that the bill didn't meet deadlines and won't move forward during this session. Any questions on those or other bills? I'll be back next month to update you on some of the bills that are continuing to move forward in the legislative process. Thanks.
I'm not sure I need this, but I'll put it on. Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to give you an update on one bill I've been working on through the whole legislative session, primarily due, as you might imagine, to maintenance and operations, although it's of concern to all of school facilities departments, and that's SB 1783 Dodd, and that's the one that has to do with seismic safety and classroom contents, being concerned with making sure that those classroom contents are secured. If you will remember, Mr. Dodd, who is the author, is from the Napa Valley area, and there was an earthquake early next year, and that's essentially where this bill and this idea came from. So, as introduced, it would have created a mandatory process to create, implement, and take corrective actions to ensure that these the contents of classrooms are secure. Again, Cash did not take an opposed position on it, but we met with the author and worked very closely with him, pointing out some of the implementation issues that this might pose. Chief among them would be, if you're going to require a plan, I think even the author's office pegged that at about $150,000 to $200,000 on average. So in other words, we were pointing out that we definitely want to encourage this and make sure everyone secures their classroom contents, but we want to make sure that it doesn't add cost and complication, a phrase that you all know that is an important one for advocacy. Long story short, the provisions that we found difficult will be amended out of the bill. So specifically the requirement to develop a plan for inspection, and also the plan, there was a provision in there that required schools to consult with additional specified agencies. That was another issue that we had some difficulty over, and those were removed. So this is kind of, my colleague Rebecca talked about some bills that tried to get out of the committee, but they weren't, maybe the author wasn't willing to take the amendments, something like that, whatever it is, and so they were retained. This one was the opposite, because the author was willing to take the amendments, frankly, pull back a little bit on it. The bill will move forward, so we're glad for that. What continues in the bill is it requires that schools inspect and identify any imminent safety risks as guided by the it's the OES DSA guidelines, and frankly, as we spoke with the author, a lot of folks use that anyway. We did talk to the author about in some of our trainings, in maintenance and operations, and others, to include this, to remind folks that this is a significant thing that folks need to do, even though there's not a legislative hammer right now. And that could change as well. So this is kind of some good news. So we don't have a position on it. It would be hard for us to go in full support, but we've been working with the author very well. So this is kind of, we don't always get these, this is kind of a good news story about legislation. In my view, it worked the way it should have worked. So we'll continue to watch that and continue to work with the author, but at this point, it's pretty good news. I'll give you a longer update next month, but there's another bill that we are chasing, I'm chasing around, SB 1170 by Wachowski, and that has to do with stormwater plans and who is liable for this. Can you shift liability to your contractors, this or that? There is, so Cash is opposed to that, but there are a lot of public agencies, particularly in the last few months, have been joining in on that opposition. So we're happy about that, but that's one that we want to continue to monitor. So just quickly then, I'm going to move a little bit to regulations. I was going to let OPSC do this, but I see they're not here. OPSC, was it on July 14th, convened a stakeholders meeting to try to define the historical buildings. So basically what criteria is going to be used and so on. I won't go into all the discussions, it was pretty technical, but basically trying to balance rigor and flexibility, basically. Something that's reasonable and adequate, but also that recognize the unique circumstances of historical buildings at the local level. So basically, What's obvious is if you're registered on a state or national registry, you're fine, it qualifies. But what about in instances where it's not like that, but it's also still legitimate? And so basically they're kind of creeping up on a definition of that. The folks that were in attendance were essentially, there's a fair amount of school districts and of course school facility consultants of various types adding their expertise on that as well. OPSC staff has indicated that as a result of the discussion, they will draft some amendments and then circulate them to the stakeholders to see, to get some more input, and then at some point take it to the board for the state allocation board for their approval. They did not indicate a date on that yet, so that one is still in progress. I think I've done this will be the third month in a row now, but I think it's still necessary. The Healthy Schools Act, SB 1405, the training requirements. If you remember, July 1st was the deadline, basically when the bill goes into effect. Going forward, if you have school staff that is going to apply pesticides, and again, look on the DPR website as to what that means. That can also mean the wipes, when teachers do it, things like that. So you need to get that training to essentially protect yourself and to prepare yourself. Again, all that is required, easy for me to say, is it's a 1-hour online training, YouTube essentially, on the DPR website. And so it's relatively easy to access and you can do that at your desk. So I highly encourage you to do that. We'll be continuing to remind folks about that. Finally, and this is somewhat new, you've heard me talk in the past about PCBs. You know, it's been in building materials, Santa Monica, Malibu for the folks in the Southern California media market. You probably know better than I do about that, but it's become a statewide issue. The federal EPA is now involved and is looking to do some rulemaking to address the issue. So we, CASH, other statewide education organizations are working with them to see what we can do. This one is focused more on the T12 light ballots, the ones, the older ones that should have been replaced, in many cases have been, but in some cases have not, and so that's really what this universe, what the EPA is going to be focusing on. Again, this is the federal EPA, not the Cal EPA, which has also been involved in this, but essentially they've kind of kicked it up to the feds. I mention this because this Thursday, July 28th, from 2 to 4 Eastern Standard Time, the EPA is going to be putting on a webinar and essentially outlining what they're thinking about this, is what steps might be, what might be coming next, and it's an opportunity, as they say, for, what do they say, for local school board members and statewide association staff to participate in the webinar, etc. So I'm going to participate in that. Some of my colleagues at the AXA and CASMO and others are going to do that, so we can make sure that we continue our advocacy effort. But if anyone is interested in that, I would suggest that you can contact Todd Coleman at the EPA, and that's coleman.todd@epa.gov. And if you do that, he'll send you up and send you all the information. So that's something you might want to recommend to your staff if this is an issue, if it's an issue in your community, or you're just not sure about your light valves and other issues related to PCBs. No, not yet, but I'm going to put that on there. We just got it, so yeah. Any questions about any of that? Okay, thank you very much. Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ian. So up next, I think we have annual conference update. My wonderful vice chair, Don Miller.
Thank you, Jenny. Good morning, everyone. I'm Don Ulrich. Like Jenny said, I'm with CASH, vice chair, and I'm also with Coast Unified School District in the Central Valley. The conference planning is going great, and I can say that with confidence this year. Last year when I said that, I wasn't so sure. It was my first year, but I checked with Greg and Lisa, and they'd assured me things were going well. This year I feel like I know just a little bit more about it, and confident in saying things are going real well. Very important meeting today for the strand chairs and the co-chairs. We've also invited all the committee members, so we should have a big meeting, lots of input. Today we're going to really look at all the workshops and sessions, make sure that we don't have too many overlaps, make sure they go together, make sure they're what we need. Another big important meeting today doesn't have to do with the the conference particularly, but it is a segment of the conference, and that's the AI, I'm going to get the acronym right, the AIA, CC, and CASH Design Awards for all of our architectural and design firms. We're going to work with that group this afternoon and just tweak the awards, make sure it hits all the criteria we want, change a few things needed, so we're ready to go to get the applications out really soon here in August, so people can start applying for those awards. I think another important thing to mention about the conference is, we want to be prepared on November 8th and then leading into the conference that we're adequately and talking and helping our constituents out there with what to do now that the bond measure has passed. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves too much, but I think it's prudent for us to at least start thinking about that, what the implementation is going to be for that, and how our conference can help communicate CASH's role. And I think, obviously CASH's role is going to be to work with our colleagues at the state agencies, OPSC, CDE, to make sure that the funds that the voters have approved and asked for actually get out to school districts in a timely manner. That's going to be really important, I think, to our constituents, and at that CASH conference we'll be talking about that. So we'll leave some room for workshops and sessions that will deal with that specifically. So we're supporting our constituents out there with what's important to them, assuming that the bond measure passes in November. So that's the report from me. Any questions about the conference? Any recommendations before we kind of start finalize things today? Okay, thank you.
So as Dawn mentioned, that's an important meeting today, and for those folks who haven't been involved in conference planning, that's really a good entree into the organization, really helpful look at what all goes into planning the annual conference. So I encourage you to at least attend, and even if you're not going to participate this year, it's a good place to get engaged. So I haven't seen Ani yet. We're way ahead of schedule. Is she here? No? Do you want me to do a song and dance in between?
Yeah, sing something.
Oh, you don't like that. I have very famous singing relatives, and when they ask us to go on stage with them, which we have done many Christmases in a row, I call it the Pat Boone Family Christmas Show. I say, watermelon. So nobody can hear me. Let's
Since we're ahead of
see.
schedule, Jenny, why don't we
Sorry?
just, since we're ahead of schedule, we can just go past that and we'll have her come next month and give us an
Okay,
update.
that sounds great. So we're ahead of schedule. Anna's usually walking in 5 minutes before our presentation, so she'll give that update at our next membership meeting. And for school energy and water, she's really very technical with that information. And if you have questions in the meantime, I'm sure she would be happy to address those if you email her. So, all right, so now we're on to People's Choice and Job Exchange. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of work out there. So our firms getting ready? Are they hiring up, staffing up? Anybody? All looking at your electronic devices? Thinking that Jenny's going to start singing? Brett, I'm talking to you. Any jobs? Well, seeing no show of hands, guess what, Joe? I finished ahead of time. How did that happen? No state agents yet?
Slow clap.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We'll look forward to seeing you at workshops and next month's membership.